classic TV fans, Rick Nineg here. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about Three's Company, more specifically about a character that I'm sure a lot of you love. His name was Larry Dallas. We're going to talk a little bit about him and Richard Klein, the man who played him, and talk about what he was surprisingly told to do. And I mean, it changed his entire life when some things go a certain way and then all of a sudden an unexpected thing happens. I mean, it could change your whole life, and that is what happened to Richard Klein. If you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe and leave a thumbs up. It really helps. So let's talk a little bit about Larry before I tell you about what very interesting fact about him in regards to the show on Three's Company. Well, Larry Dallas was on Three's Company, and he was a used car salesman and Jack Tripper's best friend. Now, he lived upstairs from Jack, Janet, Chrissy, as well as technically Cindy and Terry when they had their turn in the apartment, even though he is Jack's best friend. Now, Larry was a bit of a womanizer. Well, let's say, okay, he was a big womanizer. He often lied about who he was, saying that he was Jack. Other times he would say that he was other things like, I don't know, a doctor, Playboy's best photographer, things like that. And he would get himself and Jack into serious situations, some tight spots with angry, jealous boyfriends, at one time a dad, at some other times with all these girls that he was dating. Now, he would lie about his job essentially to impress girls, telling them he had different career choices, which he did not have. But as I mentioned, he was a car salesman. Now, in one episode, he was questioned by his landlord, Mr. Roper. Larry mentioned that he served in the U.S. Marine Corps for 5 years. So that's really interesting that the character did serve his country. And you may not know that Larry is of Greek descent. Now, not Richard Klein, but Larry the character. Now, this fact was because of his last name. It's only mentioned in one episode. So one where Jack opens his bistro, Jack's Bistro, in which he explains that he shortened his name to Dallas because he couldn't spell his last name, Dalliopolis. Now, Larry Dallas was distinct out of all the characters that appeared on Three's Company because he was the only character besides Jack Tripper to appear in Three's Company and both of the spin-offs, The Ropers and Three's a Crowd. So that's really interesting. Now, in regards to Three's Company, which is what we're talking about, his first appearance was in No Children, No Dogs. This was a season 1 episode, and all of these snapshots are from that episode, as well as his last appearance, Friends and Lovers Part 2, that was also in Three's Company. And now what happened in that episode, No Children, No Dogs, he was only supposed to appear once, just once at that time and no other time. He was essentially supposed to be a one-time character, a one-off, and then that's it. But the producers of the show loved the chemistry between him and John Ritter so much that he became a main character. They started using him more and more, and then people said, we really like this as well. Ratings started to go up, and they just kept him as a character that they absolutely loved, and people continued to love his performances, and mostly, I think, the chemistry that he had on the show with all of the characters. So they asked him to stay for the show, and that absolutely changed his life. That's amazing that they asked him to stay. Now, let me know in the comments below your favorite episode in which Larry Dallas appears, and maybe one thing that you like about him, or a line or a quote that you remember about him. And did you know this fact that he was only supposed to be a one-time character, but then he was continuously brought back to the show pretty much every single episode, and that is so awesome. We'll see you all next time. Thank you so much for supporting, and most importantly, be hopeful. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, especially my Diamond tier patrons: Harold P, Terry Y, Jerry D, Citizen Kane 359, David D, Kevin K, Sally N, and Vito L. If you want to be on this list, make sure to check out the link in the description below for Patreon for exclusive content you won't see anywhere else.